Okay, I did mention that we were going to talk a little bit about the differences between in-person teaching and online teaching. We already highlighted a little bit based on size of motion. We also talked a little bit based on in terms of the size of space that you're going to be working with, in person versus online. There are some other differences though, and it's some of those differences that have come really home to roost for me during these last few months with so much remote teaching. I did learn how to teach in a classroom, and I practiced all the way back as a child, helping with children as an assistant in childcare situations, then moving on into my presentations as a student, moving on to formal training, moving on to experience, and now 20 years of experience teaching everything from junior high all the way up through college. With that in mind, my experiences, I bring my style that is fairly well developed. But if you're not a person that has either grown up as an educator or someone that has not trained as an educator, this may not be your favorite part of the process. But let's talk a little bit about how we can train ourselves in this situation to communicate most effectively. And to be honest, we're going to focus most on the online area, because for now, that's where we're going to be for the most part, is in the online area. So let's talk about a couple things. Number one, we've mentioned it already, know your space. If you're doing a pre-produced piece that you're going to give to students, you should have a good idea of the space you're working with. But when you're on Zoom, understand it is very much more limited, and the lens that is used on webcams and the audio for the microphone on most webcams is meant to be a very close conversational style. So in the online space, conversational style as opposed to presentational style might be something that you would really benefit from. Just make sure that you're thinking of things as a conversation rather than a presentation, meaning that you're going to give question and expect response. You're also going to keep probably the volume down, the expressiveness down. You're also going to make sure that you're giving good wait time as you would in an ongoing conversation. Even if that conversation is between you and 20 or 30 people in the Zoom space, it still becomes conversational rather than demonstrative. Okay? So that's one thing. The second thing is the hardest part, in my opinion, about online teaching. And that is adapting to talking to the glass. And what I mean by that is right now, I'm trying to have a conversation with you, but there's no response from you. And for a teacher who's used to having a question and response, a question or a throw out and give me an answer in return, all of these types of interactions and being able to see facial expressions, it's hard when you're talking to glass because it also doesn't give me any facial expression. So for me, I rely on the fact that I have taught most everything I've taught in person before, and so that mental muscle memory of where do the questions come? Where should the pauses be? What things are they likely to get confused about? Those are an advantage that I have, but it is hard when I'm standing in front of a window of black boxes with just kids' names in them or just student names in them, because I have no idea if the people on the other end are understanding. I don't have that nonverbal communication of their faces, because so often students won't either be able to or be willing to put their face on Zoom. Now you say, well, I'm going to require it in my class. Here's the problem. Not every student is going to have internet access that is capable of doing both audio and video smoothly and cleanly. And let's go back to our most important performance, being heard. That audio is king. So if it means that you have to turn off the student video and even mute their mic for your message to come through to the student, That's the first priority. The second thing you would want for priority is them to be able to respond with auditory to you, so that at least that conversation can work in the sense of a telephone call where audio is moving back and forth. Finally, if they can see you and you can see them, and they can hear you and you can hear them, now it becomes the easiest in the online environment. But that may not be possible based on certain hardware limitations or different internet speeds or software troubles. That may not happen. Additionally, remember, unlike a classroom where they're coming to your space, Zoom in essence means that you're going into their personal space. And not every person is comfortable in a formal situation like this with a teacher coming into their personal space. We will get into this a little bit more in the social emotional component, but just be very understanding that a student may be more protective either of their privacy or their intimate location, their bedroom, their living room, their dining room, their kitchen, or the family that may be wandering around in the background, or where they may be taking in your class. That may be all things they don't want you to see. And that is okay. We need to respect the privacy of others, because if we go back to our presence conversation, mutual respect is a required portion of teaching. And we don't think about that down here in the performance component very often. But it truly is, especially in this online environment. Now, in this online environment, we want to make sure we're heard. In the online environment, we want to make sure we're more conversational. In the online environment, we also want to make sure that we're respecting the privacy of our students, and that we may not be, as educators, getting as much feedback from visuals or auditory as we're used to. There are some advantages, though, because in the online environment, there is chat available. So even if a student can't talk to you, they can type to you. And that can be a live stream typing. To be fair, it's going to be another element of performance that we're going to have to get used to, not just focusing on my notes and my content and my delivery, but also keeping one eyeball over here on the chat so that I can see if anybody has questions, troubles, or struggles. So it is a bit of a divided attention that makes online teaching a little bit more difficult, but it absolutely can be done. That's another difference with the online environment versus the in-person. But another advantage of the online environment is I don't have to spend time waiting on people to file in or get their stuff out or put their stuff away or eat their food or get their pencils ready or hand out the papers or gather up the papers. All of that can be done digitally. Their home is their home, and I don't have to worry about that whole component of the classroom. There's also no turning to your neighbor to chat in an online Zoom chat. If they do, that's their problem. That's not your problem anymore. Additionally, though, any resources that we've put together up in our organizational pattern for process, we can already have those materials delivered to students. I can already pre-tape a video and have them watch it before they come to the interactive component of the classroom. You see, performance in that online space offers a whole lot more possibilities than the in-person performance of the classroom. For some of us that are used to the classroom, it's a bit of a learning curve. For those just getting started, you have a unique opportunity. You don't have to go stand in front of 25 people all of a sudden who are all staring at you at one time. That's not a thing necessarily online. But online, you may be talking to black boxes. The students may share some of the same trepidation being on screen as you, as a new instructor, may also feel. The good news is, whether it's in person or whether it's online, there are advantages and disadvantages of both. Your job is to be reflective and make the most of whichever format you're working within, remembering audio is king, vocabulary is key, but also no visual distractions while respecting the needs of your students. If you can do that, you're going to be okay.